Hello YouTube, this is Marauders here, and this is the Minisforum UM790 Pro. So this is a mini PC that comes with the Ryzen 7940 processor. So it's basically that I'm planning to use this as a substitute for my work machine, as a new upgrade to my work machine. And the reason I got this instead of getting a laptop is because, well, I wanted to find a relatively cheaper way to get 64 gigs of RAM onto a portable machine. So one of the major criteria for being a work machine is that I need it to run without access to a wall socket. And it just so happens that this is one of the few mini PCs that supports USB-C power delivery. And I have the Anker 737 here, and this thing is able to deliver, well, 100 watts of USB-C PD power. So it should ideally be able to power this PC. And after some tests, here's a video about the results. Okay, so the first thing that immediately before I started this test was that cables. So yes, I already knew that USB-C power delivery cable, USB-C is the whole cable problem is very prevalent. There are a lot of issues, but this was on another level. So here I have this USB-C cable, and I've tested this before. This delivers 100 watts. This supports DisplayPort. This basically is supposed to be a fully featured USB-C cable. And after I test all my USB-C cables, I mark them with what they're capable of. So this is supposed to be capable for everything. Now, when I plug this into the power bank and then I'm going to plug it into the PC. So note is that if you also have a 737, I plugged it into the out port only. I'm not plugging it into the in-out port, just so do not confuse the battery bank into whether it needs to supply power or take power. So I'm just gonna plug it into any of the USB 4 ports that are in front of the 790. Okay, so I plugged it in, and what I realized was that if you see, it is now drawing 0.1, 0.2, 0.1 watts. So it's basically pulling very little watts. And what I noticed was that when it's pulling only 0.2 watts and I try to turn it on, it will not turn on. The system basically doesn't get enough juice there's not enough ambient current to turn it on. I guess that's the best description. So at first I thought, well, because this is already this cable, I knew this cable works for everything and it's already not working. I was really starting to feel bad about my decision. Then I tried this cable. Now, this USB-C cable is only for 100 watt charging. It doesn't deliver DisplayPort. It's not for high-speed data. It is just for power. So I'm just gonna plug this in now. And when I plug this in, if you look at the power being consumed, it's consuming 1 watt. So that's a pretty normal current to consume. That means there's some actual draw happening, and when it's consuming 1 watt, I can turn on the UM790. So you see the screen is reacting. And there, it's booting up. It's booted. So I was a bit confused at this point because here I thought as long as the cable says it's for power delivery and everything, and it supports 100 watts, it's supposed to work. But here I have the situation where even though the cable says 100 watts, it might not be usable for powering something like this. So the only thing I can say in this after this is that you definitely should get a power bank that can, or some sort of power meter that can show you what's the draw between the power bank and the device. And if you see that it's drawing less than 1 watt, you probably need to try and find another cable and try your luck with other cables to see whether it works or not. And that's the thing. I also use other USB-C cables that do support DisplayPort and other things, and yeah, that would actually still draw 1 watt. So it's not just that you can only use cables that only deliver power and not high-speed data. And it's just luck of the draw. You have to see whether the cable you have will actually work with what you want. And now for the final question about making this a portable setup. So let's say right now we can see that at 20 watt draw, this setup is gonna still run the system for about 3 hours. In the work scenario, that's pretty decent. If you're doing like field development work or something, that's quite a lot. And probably you might even go down even more if you run less demanding things. But of course, what if we wanted to start charging up this battery bank at the same time as we were doing work? So here I have Anker. This is a Powercore Anker 736 charger. So it's a 100 watt USB-C charger, which definite. And this battery bank, the 737, can take in 100 watts for charging. So let's see what happens when we plug it in. So I'm just going to plug it into the wall socket. And here's the cable. And we're going to plug in let's see what happens when I plug it into the input port of the battery bank. Here we go. And the screen turned and everything just turned off. So you can see that when I plugged in the charger, everything just turned off and it just shut down. Okay, I'm gonna just turn on the system now. Now you can see that the thing here is that when I turn it on, it seems to be drawing about the same amount of power as we are taking from it. So the input is still 24.9 and the output is like, the input and output are almost same. So given these values, it would say that this is supposed to be able to charge the battery at the same time while we're using it. But of course, the moment you saw that when we transitioned and when we plugged it in, it just immediately shut off. And the other thing that we see now is that notice the screen isn't coming up. The USB-C screen isn't coming up, which is what I said might happen. So we're just going to pull out the monitor and then we're going to plug it back in again because it should have finished booting up by now. There you go. So that's an example of all the issues that I've been mentioning. Okay, so we know that it seems like it is able to charge and work at the same time. Oh, let's try running the game now and see what happens when we just draw more current. and see whether it shuts off. So remember that we would be drawing about 70 watts when we are actually running when the game is running like at full capacity. So it's now 40. $60. Okay, I did an angle this. Okay, let's just try going into a match. We're just gonna go into a match and see how much more we can load it. Yeah, I just okay. It's okay. I don't need to test this anymore. Okay, so what did we learn from there? Number one is that the 737 power bank seems to be able to pass through, provided you have high enough capacity charger. It seems like it's able to charge and use power the system at a high power rate, at a high wattage rate. But the problem is that we couldn't, like, while it was running, if we plugged in the charger, it would interrupt the system, it would turn off. And it can't act as a UPS, so we cannot introduce charge to it when it is running. But what about removing power? That means like maybe you're charging halfway and you just want to use it like a UPS, and you want to say that if there's power to charge, it will charge the battery and power the system. But when there's nothing and you remove it, what will happen? Well, let's see. So the moment I pulled out the power, everything turned off again. It's very likely what's happening here is that whenever the input current changes, the battery bank has some sort of reset or something, where it isn't a clear-cut transfer of the state between where there's input power and no input power. Basically, it doesn't expect that it needs to act as a UPS to quickly switch between the power supplies. The question is, this is pretty good. This power bank already works pretty good for what it is, because I already know that, okay, I can at least charge it and it can use it and it can power the system for a very long time. And the problem is just that I cannot transition between connected and unconnected seamlessly without interrupting without interrupting the operation of the system. Is there a power bank that can do this? I don't know. There is another Anker power bank called the Anker Prime, which sounds like it's a very much more powerful and modern power bank, but I don't know if I can get it here or not. And some people seem to have tried it, but I don't know whether they've been running this kind of experiment or not. Well, in any case, this was a test to see whether the UM790 can be run off a power bank. This is definitely a yes. It's not a very ideal, and there are some caveats that we need to look at. But if the basic question was, can we run it off a power bank? The answer is definitely yes. So this is Marauders. I will see you all in the next video, and I'm gonna figure out how to make this into a much more portable system that can cut around for work and all. Stay tuned.